What's up, guys? Fan 101 here, and this is my Takeover San Antonio review. I just recorded Takeover Toronto a little while ago. As of now, as of recording this video, it's uploading. But I want to get to my Takeover San Antonio review because I really want to get this shit out of the way. So, with that said, let's get started. Show overall, pretty good show. Not perfect. Out of all the takeover shows they've done over the time, this is one of the weaker ones. Not by any means bad. In fact, I've yet to experience one bad takeover show, including NXT Arrival back in 2014. Can't believe it's been that long. Anyways, yeah. So this show here, not the best, but definitely not a bad show. However, this was the very first show, because keep in mind, every single time there was a takeover show, the night after there was usually the night after there was a pay-per-view, or back when it was random, it would be like the same month. However, when you compared those takeover shows as well as NXT Arrival to the WWE main roster pay-per-view, NXT always came out better. This is the first takeover show where the Royal Rumble, where the main roster pay-per-view was better. In this case, it was the Royal Rumble. I already reviewed that show. That had the awesome Styles and match between Styles and Cena, Reigns and Owens. You had and two pretty good matches in Neville and Rick Swann and Charlotte and Bailey. Underwhelming main event of your Royal Rumble, but the show overall was better than this show. So it's a little bit weird to think about. But aside from that, this was still a pretty good show. The show opened up with Eric Young versus Ty Dillinger. This was the first match of their feud. This is at this point after the loss with Roode and a second loss to Roode for the #1 contendership. Eric Young tried tirelessly again and again to have Ty Dillinger join Sanity, his stable, with the stable he leads, which is him, Alexander Wolf, Killian Dane, and Nikki Cross, who was not with Young this match because she had a match later on. But this show was definitely, or this match right here was not exactly a bad match. I mean, the match didn't go too terribly long. It only went about 10 minutes. But I thought they had a pretty good match for what it was worth. It was a nice, solid match. Not really too much to think about, although, not think about, I mean. But there was interference from Killian Dane and from Alexander Wolf. And there was, action taken again. Like very early in the match, Killian Dane was on the outside, so was Dillinger, and Dane just ran at him for basically a crossbody, which is pretty painful from a guy that guy's size. Keep in mind, this is Big Damo. So, and if you read my reviews of not read, but if you read my reviews when I was reviewing shows for Big Damo was on for WCPW, you'll remember that that Dane was a big boy who actually could wrestle somewhat good. Had some pretty good matches in there. Now, this match here was a good match. Eric Young won the match. He won after, because Ty Dillinger kept on attacking Alexander Wolf and Killian Dane, because of course he didn't want any interference. Eventually it got to the point, eventually it was too much for him, and he countered, I think Eric Young countered whatever the springboard move was going to be but whatever it was, he did his little springboard neck breaker. I forget the name of the move. What's the name of the move? It's that springboard neck breaker. What is the name of it? It's called Youngblood. Really, his move is called Youngblood. They have not once said Youngblood. They just kept on saying his springboard neck breaker, which is exactly what it is. Okay. Still pretty good match. It didn't overshadow any of the matches on the show, except for one match, sadly. Next match was Andrade and Almas versus Roderick Strong. This was a really good match. I had a lot of fun watching this match. These are two guys that know how to work great matches. If you've seen La Sombra in Mexico and Roderick Strong in Ring of Honor and at some point in TNA, you know how good these guys are. These guys are really freaking good. They're the thing I noticed most in this match is that Roderick Strong knows how to do backbreakers. He's the backbreaker guy. So if you want somebody to break backs, Roderick Strong is your guy, as creepy as that sounds. But it also sounds scary. Because a lot of the moves that Roderick Strong does, they look like they could actually hurt. Not that all of them don't. I'm pretty sure some of them do. Some of those moves that Strong does, he does it with such force that's like, it doesn't have to feel good for his opponent. But Andrade and Almas, he did it. It wasn't a one-way street. Andrade did just as much as Strong did. Hung in there very well. Did that springboard kick thing, which is that handspring kick thing, which was actually a really cool move now that I think about it. When he does when he springboards into like a flip, and then he he does like another flip, but in midair he like kicks his opponent, whether it's on his head or on his body with both of his legs. That's pretty cool, in my opinion. Roderick Strong won the match after he nailed the bastard with the sick kick. My God, that sick kick is just crazy. Give me that move. I want that. Next match was. It's arguable whether or not this was the best match of the night or the main event. I tend to side with this one, though the main event was good for different reasons. Probably this one. I'm gonna give it to this one. It was DIY defending the NXT Tag Team Championship against the Authors of Pain, which they came out in some pretty cool looking skeleton masks, I gotta say. Although sadly they took them off not long afterward. I think this was their second title defense. They defended the title once before, in between Takeover shows against the Revival. But this match here was pretty awesome. This was the first great Authors of Pain match, not good match, their first great match, and it really showed. They hung in there with DIY. I mean, yeah, granted, a lot of their great matches were in due part to DIY and the Revival, but again, it's also the other side. They knew how to wrestle, and they can move. They're not like Great Khali, who can barely move, or they weren't like the Ultimate Warrior, who, even though he can move, he's really limited in the ring. These are two guys who they can move, they can do stuff. Of course, they can't do like friggin' springboard flips and shit, but they're a big powerhouse team, and it works for them. And being managed by Paul Ellering, because God knows WWE needs managers nowadays, really makes it all fit. As for the match itself, again, the match was great. They did the spot again, just like they did in Toronto with the Revival, where Ciampa had the arm bar on one of the members of the Authors of Pain, and Gargano had the Gargano escape on the other one. That didn't work. Eventually, it just got to the point where they just not destroyed them, but they hit Ciampa with the last chapter for the win. Booyah! Authors of Pain already are your NXT Tag Team champ champions. That did not take long. I did not expect. I don't think anybody really expected DIY to lose that early because they just won the titles. It really goes to show you that NXT, as formulaic as it sometimes can be, even though the formula works and is not boring, they can throw a curveball at you every now and then. And not like a swerve like what Vince Russo tried to do in WCW and TNA. No, none of that shit. After this, Asuka, I think this was, actually no, I think it was it was before this. It was before in between the Tag Team Championship and the Women's Championship matches, Seth Rollins actually made an appearance on the show. Keep in mind, this was during the Seth Rollins Triple H feud. Seth Rollins had just been screwed out of a spot in the Royal Rumble by not so much Triple H, but Triple H's music. You know, Stephanie had help in doing that. But so he came on the show. It's weird that I see Seth Rollins on NXT Takeover because he's never been on a Takeover show. And if you recall, Seth Rollins was the first ever NXT champion. He was the inaugural champion. So Rollins was calling out Triple H, saying, "This is Takeover, right?" He basically hijacked the show until he got Triple H's ass. Triple H came out. He looked like he was going to, he did the tie and the suit and everything, and then he just called for security to eject Rollins, to take Rollins away. He attacked the security guards trying to get the Triple H. He knocked a few of them down, but eventually there were so many guards that Rollins had to be detained and was taken away. This was a really good segment. This actually helped make the show better because it was a really good segment. You don't hear segments and NXT Takeover in the same slot. They do it on the main roster too much as it is. Remember that Miz TV segment on the pre-show of a Payback? Yeah, nobody wanted to see that shit on Payback. We could see it on Raw, not on Payback. The pay-per-view where you're supposed to kick ass, not have segments. But still, every once in a while when you do it, it's really good. This one was really good. After this was definitely the most disappointing thing of the whole night, which was a fatal four-way match for the NXT Women's Championship. It was Asuka defending her championship against the Nikki Cross, Billie Kay, and Peyton Royce. This match, not that good, I gotta say. It was okay. I'll give it that. It was an okay match. When it was Asuka and Nikki Cross, it was pretty good. When Billie Kay and Peyton Royce were involved, not so much. It really dawned on me at that point how limited the women's division had become. You took away all the big players, slowly but surely. You took up Charlotte, Sasha, and Becky at the same time. Emma was on the main roster. So the really good wrestlers who were down there are now gone, or a lot, at least from that first era of women's wrestling. Emma, who went to the main roster and then came back and became Evil Emma. Charlotte, Sasha, Becky. Later, Mickie James, who made her one appearance in NXT, she went up to the main roster immediately. I think she could have benefited from staying in NXT. Not too much longer, but just a little bit longer, maybe a few months. Bailey eventually, earlier that year, but she really needed to come up. She was in NXT for too long. So her, I understand. That's why they brought in Nikki Cross and Ruby Riott and Ember Moon, and that's why they're having this women's tournament. What's on the line? I don't know, but Io Shirai and Kairi Hojo are on that list, and if neither of the three women that I mentioned, being Ruby Riott, Nikki Cross, and Ember Moon, if none of those three are going to win the title from Asuka, it's got to be one of those Japanese wrestlers from the tournament. If not, then Ember Moon has to win it, probably at this year's Takeover Brooklyn. So yeah, I went off on a tangent, but what I'm trying to say is that not Nikki Cross. She could learn a little bit more, but she's already pretty good. Peyton Royce and Billie Kay, it was so obvious in this match that they're not ready, not just to be on the main roster, they're not even ready to be in the NXT Women's title hunt. They're clearly not ready. They have good characters. Their character is good. But I will say Billie Kay's music after a while did kind of annoy me a bit. And hell, Billie Kay herself, when she doesn't have the makeup on, she looks fine. When she has the makeup on, something about her doesn't look right. Peyton Royce looks a lot better. And even in the ring, Peyton Royce is better than Billie is Beller. Yes, it is Beller. What the hell am I saying? It is better than Peyton Royce is better than Billie Kay. But that's not saying that much. Not that they haven't improved since they came to WWE. They have, but they need. My God, they really, really need to give them like 2 more years. I think they need another year or 2 in developmental before they can even sniff the main roster, because it's just not working out right now. I'm not saying it's not working out like it's a dud, but I'm just saying like they need more time to develop. At least another year. But I'd say another 2 years. So, but they really looked out of place in this match is what I'm really trying to say. They looked out of place whenever they did their moves in there. It didn't look all that great. In some cases, it just looked sloppy. That's why they were taken out like a few minutes into the match, so that way Nikki Cross and Asuka can work in the ring because they know what the hell they're doing. Not that Billie Kay and Peyton Royce don't, but they're not nearly as good. They're not that good. They're no Dana Brooke. Thankfully, they're not Dana Brooke, but they're not that good. Well, maybe they are Dana Brooke, because if they get called in the main roster soon because of their looks, it's going to be Dana Brooke all over again. So yeah, Asuka defending the championship. The match was 9 seconds shy of 10 minutes. 9 minutes and 51 seconds. Which was one of the shortest, probably the shortest NXT Women's title match since Takeover Arrival. They all went over 10 minutes. This one, not so much. Probably because they knew if they stuck him in there for 15 minutes, then Asuka could not shield or could not hide Peyton Royce's and Billie Kay's weaknesses. They have weaknesses right now. Although I gotta admit, one cool spot, a couple minutes before the end of the match, was Peyton Royce and Billie Kay recreated the Shawn Michaels Triple H Chris Benoit spot from WrestleMania 20, where they're standing on one announce table. They do a double delayed suplex to Nikki Cross onto another table. If you recall, Shawn Michaels, Triple H did the exact same thing to Chris Benoit back at WrestleMania 20. I'm probably the only one that picked up on that. So, hooray for me. But then Asuka, when it was those two against Asuka just kicked their asses. They're good at selling, I'll give them that. And their facial expressions, but Asuka just kicked their asses into the next stratosphere. So Asuka, it was an okay match. Asuka defeated Peyton Royce and Billie Kay and Nikki Cross, who was never pinned. But funny enough, when Asuka was leaving, Nikki Cross was smiling. That's not good. Bobby Roode and Shinsuke Nakamura. Shinsuke Nakamura defending the NXT Championship against Roode. This match went almost 30 minutes. Maybe it was too long, maybe not. But I thought this was a nice, slow-paced, great match. This match was great. Not as great as some of the other matches that Roode would have later, Nakamura had earlier. But this was still a great match. A lot of work, not working on the knee, because the knee didn't come into place until literally the last few minutes of the match. But Roode at one point hit the implant DDT, the glorious DDT, didn't work. There was a lot of, I think there was some submission, variation. I think there was. But the point is that Shinsuke Nakamura, this is where the match really turned around in terms of what happened. Nakamura was on the top rope, and Roode was on the apron. Nakamura hit the knee. Before he goes for a Kinshasa or the Balmain knee back in New Japan, he liked to hit a top rope knee from either the middle rope or the top rope, usually the middle rope. And he did it to Bobby Roode here on the apron. However, they played up to the fact that Nakamura hit his knee on the apron and he was selling an injury. Roode was aware of this. He eventually got Nakamura into a single leg crab. That didn't work. He hit the glorious DDT before the single leg crab, or even after. I don't remember. But he hit the single leg, the glorious DDT, didn't work. He hit a second one, which looked almost painful to take. But Shinsuke Nakamura always had a way of selling Bobby Roode's glorious DDT in the sickest way. Like every time he took glorious DDT, it looked like the guy was being killed, breaking his neck, dead. But Bobby Roode won the NXT Championship from Nakamura, which, again, much like with the Authors of Pain DIY match, I'm surprised Bobby Roode won this early. But then I got the idea because, Nakamura was going to come up to the main roster soon. He already had beaten Joe. He already defended the championship on several occasions against Joe, and he needed to pass it on. Passed it on to Roode. He did. So great match here, I gotta say. Not as good as their match at Takeover Orlando, which I will get to, but still a really good match, I gotta say. So that said, guys, it was a good show. Not a great show, but it was a good show. That said, guys, be well, stay safe, have a good day. I will be back with my Takeover Orlando review, hopefully pretty soon. Until next time, guys, peace, and good luck, and all that stuff.